Consciousness is vast, reality is fluid, and what we call the paranormal may just be part of the human experience. We move through life searching for certainty, but every so often something happens that challenges what we think we know. A flicker of movement in an empty room, an intuition too strong to ignore, or a moment that lingers long after it's passed. Some call it supernatural, others call it psychological, but maybe it's both. I'm Mallorie, a therapist exploring the threshold between psychology, the supernatural, and the transformations that happen in between. Whether it's unexplained phenomena, personal awakenings, or the ways our subconscious and the unknown intertwine, this is a space to wonder, to question, and to explore what these experiences mean for us. Because what matters most isn't what we experience, it's how it transforms us. Welcome to the Liminal Mind.
Today we're stepping into one of the creepiest, most perplexing phenomena reported worldwide: shadow figures. Let's begin with a simple, unsettling question. What exactly are shadow figures? Sometimes described as darker than darkness itself, these apparitions are usually humanoid, often observed in peripheral vision, silently watching from corners, doorways, or hallways. While shadow figures are frequently reported during episodes of sleep paralysis, a state in which a person wakes up unable to move, often experiencing frightening visions, reports of these entities aren't limited to nighttime. They can show themselves during the daytime, as they did for me. So, what are these shadowy entities? Psychological projections, paranormal beings, or something in between? Let's dive in and find out. Historically, shadow beings are common in folklore. Many cultures reference shadowy entities, like the jinn in Middle Eastern mythology or long black being in Choctaw legend. Modern pop culture references, Netflix's The Haunting of Hill House, to documentaries like The Nightmare, reveal that shadow figures persistently captivate our imagination, embodying our primal fears. But what exactly is behind these sightings? Let's first explore the psychological explanations. Psychology provides fascinating insights into shadow figure experiences. The human brain is wired to detect patterns. It's a survival mechanism. Dr. Sophie Scott from University College London describes our brain's tendency to see human shapes or faces in random patterns, such as shadows or natural shapes. But does this explain every vivid sighting? Carl Jung spoke about the shadow self, the part of our subconscious containing unresolved fears, traumas, or negative aspects that we deny or repress, sometimes manifesting as shadow-like figures. Our nervous system, overly activated by trauma or anxiety, may literally project our emotional shadows outward. Could these external shadows be a symbolic manifestation of our internal psychological darkness? Trauma research adds credibility to this. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score, describes how severe trauma and unresolved emotional distress can manifest visually and physically, sometimes as hallucinations or projections of suppressed fears, potentially appearing as shadow figures. From a cognitive perspective, psychologist Dr. French suggests experiences of shadow figures may be heightened by expectation, anxiety, or even cultural influence, meaning our mind may fill in the gaps with imagery that aligns with subconscious fears or beliefs. But psychological explanations don't always capture the visceral realism of these encounters. Paranormal theories offer compelling alternatives. The paranormal perspective suggests these shadow entities might exist independently of our minds. Paranormal researchers such as Rosemary Ellen Guiley describe shadow figures as interdimensional beings, possibly crossing briefly into our own reality. In folklore and paranormal research, shadow figures are sometimes associated with places that have intense emotional histories. Some paranormal enthusiasts even consider shadow figures as residual hauntings, energy imprints left behind by emotionally charged historical events. Famous locations like Waverly Hills Sanatorium or Trans-Allegheny Asylum frequently report shadows and sightings, possibly echoing traumatic histories. The infamous Hat Man, a shadow figure reported worldwide, is often linked with feelings of dread, fear, or impending danger. Paranormal investigator Heidi Hollis suggests these entities might feed off negative emotions, appearing during emotionally turbulent moments in our lives. Interestingly, sightings of these figures aren't restricted to darkness. Many paranormal investigators have documented sightings during daytime, suggesting something beyond simple optical illusions or tricks of darkness. Reflecting back to my own daytime encounter, I wonder about the meaning. My therapist brain asks, is there a symbolic representation, childhood fears, or subconscious anxieties? Yet, the part of me that is open to mystery believes something else might have occurred, something truly paranormal. This ambiguity, the liminal space between psychology and the paranormal, is exactly why I became interested in understanding human experiences so deeply. My encounter didn't just frighten me, it fueled my curiosity about perception, reality, and meaning making. It inspired my path toward becoming a therapist who validates experiences without needing absolute answers. Shadow figures, whether real entities or psychological symbols, often represent something unresolved or deeply emotional. A perfect example is the chilling and poignant film The Babadook, directed by Jennifer Kent. At face value, the Babadook is a shadowy, mysterious entity haunting a single mother and her child. But beneath the surface, it represents something deeply psychological: grief, trauma, and, notably, postpartum depression. Film analysts, psychologists, and cultural critics alike have identified the Babadook as a manifestation of the mother's repressed grief over losing her husband, combined with the overwhelming emotional strain and isolation of single motherhood. Psychologically speaking, this shadowy figure symbolizes all the darkness, fear, and resentment she struggles to acknowledge openly. Clinical psychologist Dr. Rebecca Raylan Berry has noted that the character's experiences parallel postpartum depression closely. The sense of isolation, intrusive thoughts, emotional numbness, exhaustion, and even resentment towards one's child, all symbolized through the sinister presence of the Babadook. From a Jungian perspective, the Babadook perfectly embodies Jung's idea of the shadow self, the darker, often suppressed aspects of our personality that we fear acknowledging. Carl Jung believed the shadow, when repressed, manifests outwardly in symbolic forms, visions, or encounters. The Babadook could be understood as the externalization of the mother's hidden emotional pain. Interestingly, paranormal researchers and enthusiasts have also identified the Babadook as a classic shadow figure. Its form is dark and human-shaped, lurking in corners or behind doors, strikingly similar to real-life descriptions. Paranormal researcher Rosemary Ellen Guiley has suggested that shadow beings might be, indeed, a reflection of emotional turmoil or negative energy, very much like the symbolism within the Babadook. The brilliance of the Babadook lies in this dual interpretation. It invites viewers to explore the blurred lines between paranormal entities and psychological reality. Just as shadow figures might represent either literal paranormal entities or symbolic manifestations of our emotional trauma, the Babadook forces viewers to question: is the true monster external, internal, or somewhere in between? The cultural resonance of the film underscores how shadow figures aren't just spooky tales. They can profoundly symbolize the human psyche's struggles, especially around issues society finds difficult to openly discuss, such as postpartum depression. Pop culture frequently draws upon shadow figures to symbolize deep psychological struggles. Consider Netflix hit series The Haunting of Hill House. The shadowy apparitions in this series represent unresolved family trauma, grief, addiction, and even mental illness. One of the most chilling figures, the bent neck lady, is later revealed to be a poignant symbol of a character's own unresolved grief, trauma, and fears projected outward. Here again, shadow figures become powerful metaphors for emotional wounds we haven't fully confronted. Another compelling example appears in Jordan Peele's film Us. While not traditionally shadow figures, the tethered, shadowy, sinister doppelgangers who lived underground symbolically embody repressed aspects of humanity's darker impulses. They reflect the idea, deeply rooted in Carl Jung's concept of the shadow self, that what we refuse to acknowledge internally eventually confronts us externally. The psychological horror game series Silent Hill provides another excellent reference. Throughout its various iterations, dark, shadowy creatures symbolize different characters' psychological trauma, repressed guilt, and deep-seated fears. The town itself manifests these shadow beings directly from the protagonist's subconscious minds, highlighting how our deepest emotional fears can project outward, appearing hauntingly real. What unites all of these examples, from the Babadook to Hill House and Us, is their powerful symbolic interpretation. Shadow figures aren't simply ghosts or supernatural beings. They're potent visual metaphors, illustrating how unresolved emotional trauma, grief, anxiety, or guilt can manifest externally, haunting us until we've faced what we suppressed. Jung argued that our unresolved inner conflicts, fears, and suppressed negative emotions form our shadow self. When ignored or repressed, the shadow inevitably surfaces, often symbolically demanding acknowledgement. Perhaps this is why shadow figures persistently resonate culturally. They symbolize a universal human truth, that we can never fully escape what we carry inside. Maybe these encounters push us to confront deeper truths within ourselves, our fears, unresolved traumas, or simply the mysteries we live alongside. Send your stories and reflections to theliminalmind25@gmail.com or message me directly on Instagram at the Liminal Mind Podcast. Your experiences help deepen our exploration of this fascinating phenomena. As we conclude our exploration into shadow figures, I leave you with another powerful quote from Carl Jung. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Perhaps encountering shadow figures symbolizes just that, inviting us to explore and integrate our shadow selves. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this exploration, please subscribe and share the Liminal Mind podcast with friends. Until next time, embrace curiosity, stay open to mystery, and remember, sometimes our deepest truths emerge from the shadows.